The United States and its coalition partners evicted Iraq from Kuwait over 23 years ago. Temporally, the Gulf War is closer to the fall of Saigon than it is to us today. Given the struggles of the past years, difficult to remember how important the Gulf War seemed in 1991, as the Soviet Union neared its collapse. In short, the Gulf War seemed to suggest that international institutions, underwritten by revolutionary advances in American military power, could finally solve real military security problems. The political and technological foundations for a transformation in the functioning of global politics were in place. The intervening years have given us time to reconsider this conclusion. Winning the conventional fight, the ability of the United States to completely destroy a more or less modern Iraqi military establishment remains a remarkable achievement. Only a few doubted at the time that the United States Army, supported by air power and by a huge international coalition, could prevail over the Iraqis. The extent of the victory, and its relative bloodlessness on the American side, surprised almost everyone. This is especially true given that the influence of air power was overstated. To be sure, coalition air attacks badly attrited Iraqi main forces, damaged Iraqi logistics and broke the morale of many frontline Iraqi conscript units. However, Iraqi armored units nevertheless maneuvered under fire, moving into blocking positions and carrying out counterattacks. Even in these conditions, US and British armored forces shattered their Iraqi opponents with only trivial casualties. The coalition victory was so lopsided that no state has risked conventional war with the United States and its allies since. This has become part of the problem. American opponents have increasingly focused on waging struggles at the margins of political and military conventionality. This has included terrorism, insurgent-style conflicts fought among the people and military political struggles that remain just below the threshold for conventional military response. American military power, fueled by outstanding execution and modern technology, can still do remarkable things, but others have adapted. It's not hard to appreciate why the collective security system is troubled. In reality, there are relatively few outlaw states that genuinely have no friends, and that can be disciplined in apolitical terms. National interests still matter, as do patron-client relationships. Nevertheless, multilateral institutions haven't gone away, and remained important to the political and military calculus in Afghanistan, Libya and Syria. Decisive battle doesn't solve all problems. Without question, the war taught us that winning the decisive battle does not necessarily lead to the political outcomes we'd like. Coalition forces badly mauled the Iraqi army and the Iraqi Republican Guard, and nearly annihilated the Iraqi Air Force. Nevertheless, the Ba'athist government managed to stay in power, despite revolts in the north and the south, as well as a draconian sanctions regime. Not even a pair of no-fly zones, designed to provide breathing room for rebels in the north and the south, could facilitate regime collapse. Rather than a solved problem, Iraq became a long-term management issue, one that the United States was not prepared to handle. Instead of evaluating whether Iraq was weaker or stronger than it had been in 1990, Western analysts focused on minor year-to-year changes. Iraq's shattered military forces could never hope to reconstitute themselves under any plausible time frame. This fact was so true that it was perhaps too true. Iraqi weakness became boring. Analysis and political debate focused on trivial changes at the margins of Iraqi military strength, such as whether cheating on the sanctions regime could put a few tanks back into service, or whether Hussein had managed to squirrel away a few useless chemical munitions. A coalition that had come together in the face of Iraqi strength could not remain together in the face of Iraqi weakness, notwithstanding U.S. efforts to overhype the threat. American PGMs could not, on their own, destroy Hussein's regime. The United States wrapped itself in knots for 12 years, until the George W. Bush administration determined to solve the political problem by making it much, much worse. Conclusion: in the wake of the war, the near-total consensus was that the conflict represented a huge triumph of American arms, perhaps serving as a harbinger for a more assertive age of multilateral institutions, not to mention a more confident use of American power. This consensus has largely evaporated. The problems solved by American force of arms don't remain solved, and the United Nations is anything but united. States can apparently even invade their neighbors and annex provinces again, without fear of military response. And yet, we can overstate the degree to which the achievements of the war have dissipated. Few believe that the United States will fight anything like the Gulf War in the near future, and this in part because aggressors have become cagier about how they decide to fight. But it's undoubtedly a good thing that most combatants struggle to keep their fights below the level that would trigger international, and U.S., intervention. America's success in the Gulf War meant that future international problems would not resemble the Gulf War, and on balance, that's a positive.
Hey, future efforts, you don't have to take the trigger.
Yeah, so our biggest concern is that if this does not spool properly, or you just obviously take it in, save your time there. Left around that.
Did they say how long?
I'm pretty sure you can only see the right guy here. I'm not worried about it. I just want to make sure, like, I trust you guys. I just need to make these decisions. It takes time to spool that.
Let's go! Continue engagement with the stop!
Get back as far as possible.
Hold on.
Hey!